Sometimes I feel like an assassin. People call me. I load up my car with all my goodies and my little toolbox and things, and I go some strange state and I kill people. I am a hired killer. People hire me to design and carry out gruesome deaths. Whether the murder weapon is a machete or a pair of hands, a screwdriver, a spear, a helicopter, or simply that old standard shotgun.
Tom's devoted to it, and he doesn't flinch, and he goes for it. He just goes for it.
Would anyone care for some runny beef?
We too look at him as probably one of the best and one of the innovators of all the really weird, gross stuff going on in the industry.
If I had to choose one word for Tom, it would be fun.
Get out of my head. The 1 minute he'll be working, and the next minute he turns around with a Hudson sprayer full of blood and you're soaked. You know?
Yeah, he loves to scare people.
Tom is more than a makeup man. He's a personality.
My first inspiration as far as doing makeup was Lon Chaney Sr., the silent screen star, makeup artist, stuntman, actor, you know. He flipped me out. I saw a movie called Man of a Thousand Faces in this theater, the Plaza Theater, when I was 12 years old, and I flipped out. I had a makeup kit. I used to go to my relatives' houses and make myself up, and they would look at me and wonder why I was doing this, you know, put a tattered shirt on or a bandana and make my face brown, and I'd stand there like this, you know, and they'd say, very nice, why are you doing this, you know? Then I would steal lipsticks out of my mother's purse, you know, and just anything I get my hands on to do makeup. And I was just this little Italian kid loafing on the corner before that. And I saw this movie and it was like, hey, I can be different people through makeup, you know? The whole world opened up, a bunch of new characters opened up. Whenever Chaney opened up his makeup box, the Phantom of the Opera, the Hunchback, I started reading about what has been called the myth of Lon Chaney, that he would suffer so much for his art, you know, with harnesses that would strap him down for the Hunchback. And physically, he would like really be hanging from those gargoyles. It changed my life. From that moment on, from that day on, I became a new person. I no longer hung out on the corners. I was hanging out in my bedroom. I was bugging my mother for supplies, money for supplies, you know. I shined shoes in this neighborhood to buy makeup. Yeah, I was only a white kid that was shining shoes in Bloomfield, you know. Then it was like after the Army, it became a career move, a thing to do for a living, you know, which I never thought was possible, because I was always a Bloomfield kid.
And I think if there's anything that truly comes from Tom's being inspired by Chaney, it's a devotion.
He was an actor, a stuntman, a makeup artist, all the things I wanted to be. And I only wanted to be those because of Lon Chaney. You know, I have my son's name is Lon. I named him after Lon Chaney. So it was like a really strong, powerful influence. Martin was the first time I actually thought of doing special makeup effects.
We started to talk and chat, and he showed me his book, and I said, you know, we're going to do this thing called Martin. And he said, oh, he'd love to do the effects in it, and that's the first time that we worked together. He freaked us all out in the office. I think he might have said I solved the problem of how Martin can slice the girl's wrist. You know, all we have to do is actually do it. And he held up a razor blade and went whap like that, and it bled all over the floor. And everyone just, you know, really freaked out.
But when Martin is killed with a stake in the heart at the end, you know, I thought of, how the hell are we going to do that? Again, it was the old procedure. What do we need to see to make the audience believe that this happened? And I had a syringe, a rectal syringe, filled with blood that I would just squeeze so it would fly into the air against the actor who was pounding the stake in.
Your soul is damned. Nosferatu.
Now, on the first take, I squeezed this, and the blood, like Yellowstone National Park, the geyser went straight up in the air, hit the ceiling, and just spread blood everywhere. It never touched the actor. That, of course, was a cut, bad take. Had to clean the whole room, change the sheets, everything.
Weapons. Weapons are easy. This is one of them. Just, looks like I hope it looks like I'm cutting my neck here. See, it's just cutting out the whole. You know, one approach would be, well, let's get a fake head, take a knife and cut its throat. Well, my idea is to use as much of the real actor in the effect as possible, because the real actor can, you know, make faces, make his eyes move. Fake head just sits there. Then we just pump blood that would come streaming over the weapon, which looked like it was coming out of the person.
All right, action, come on, a little struggle.
This is a bayonet that we used in the Prowler. This was real effective in the Prowler. The reason these are varying lengths is because we start with the long one, cut away to something, cut back, and this one's in there. So in your mind, you know we've gone in further. It's a sick business, I realize that. So the idea is, what do I need to see to make me believe that I'm seeing this happen, okay? Then step by step, we think it through and decide, well, that's what we have to show the audience. So I approach the director with this and say, to make this illusion work, I think you need this, you need that, you need this. He agrees, he disagrees, we argue, I win, and then we do it, you know?
All right, here's what we're going to do first, though. I'm going to put this blood in his mouth.
Yeah. And, you know, here's Pulling Ned. You know, he gets shears stuck through his neck.
I was excited. I mean, it's, you know, it was like, great, a job finally. They took a big wooden board and they set it up exactly like the raft I was laying on. And they had a hole in there for me to put my head through.
And I've got these shears positioned right above his eyeballs here, and I'm slapping blood around his mouth.
And I got a little worried because there's ADs walking around and PAs, and different people have these shears in their hands.
If something went wrong, there's nothing. His hands are locked behind the totally helpless position, you know.
Blood out of your mouth.
You have to watch yourself with these films, man. They can waste you in the blink of an eye for art, you know? So you gotta keep.
But you do have to be part psychologist when you're dealing with actors, you know. In Friday 13th, Part 4, the teenagers were coming up to us and saying, how am I going to die? And the more glorious their death was, the greater they felt.
And then came Friday the 13th, which completely blew the lid off and had every independent filmmaker going.
Splatter. Splatter became crazy. Dawn of the Dead, you know. Friday the 13th, those two in a row, just like that. I think that's what started it all.
Tom Savini's effects were crucial to the popularity of those films.
Jason from Friday the 13th, the first one, was, I kept thinking of this guy that I saw in my neighborhood when I was a kid. He was misshapen. He had a big ear that was pushed down here, and it was lower than the other ear. So he needed to be retarded, he needed to be hydrocephalic or a pinhead or something like that, you know. So if you can do that and make it look like there's bone structure beneath all these deformations, then the audience buys it.
I
I stood outside of a theater waiting to walk in to watch this movie, and I heard the whole theater scream at the top of their lungs. And I says, wow, you know. So I go in, I forget all about the audience screaming, and then we all scream when Jason came up. So the point is, it worked. You felt something.
By far the most popular figure, for better or worse, has been Jason, has been the masked, psychotic, deformed killer. Readers write in describing Jason as if they're talking about Willie Mays.
I chose it because they called it the final chapter, and I got to kill Jason. I gave him birth in part one. It's like the Frankenstein syndrome. I'm taking care and killing my monster that I created, okay? Plus, they paid me a fortune. My old friend Jason has been sliced, diced. I mean, he's been killed 58 times. I mean, the guy is unstoppable. I wanted him to be ugly, you know. In my mind, Jason had to look like a 38-year-old version of the kid, you know, from part one. But it involved doing a whole sculpture of a whole head and then breaking it down into individual appliances to be stuck on to the actor. And I had never done anything like that, but Dick Smith had. Dick Smith, by the way, is the master, the greatest makeup artist in the world. Finally won an Academy Award that he's deserved for 40 years, you know. Dick Smith, when he invents a technique, he'll write it down, then he'll type it up, then he'll mimeograph it, and send it off to us, you know, if we ask, you know. He shares, you know, the secrets. If it wasn't for him, the state of the art would not be where it is today. Now we gotta kill Jason, but it's gotta be dramatic. 4 movies this guy's been rubbing out teenagers, you know, now it's his turn to get it. So I had this machete from Dawn of the Dead that we used to, you know, split the guy's head, you know. So I said, that's it, that's how we'll kill Jason.
Jason!
No way to slide down a machete, realistically, unless we, you know, do a traveling mat or something, you know. So we had to do it mechanically. So we built this thing. We tested it over and over and over again with water, you know, for the bleeding. But the idea of somebody getting hit and then sliding down the blade, what a payoff. They were screaming their lungs off. And there's our reward. You know, we have to wait a year later to get our reward, and there it was, and it was worth it. Gotten quite a bit of notoriety about the splatter movies. Notoriety came, I assume, with the subject matter. If I said I was proud of doing the slasher movies, there would be people who would say, how dare you, you know, and all that. But I am. My job is to take what they write down and create it, make it happen believably, you know, on the screen. So, you know, I think I do my job well. Those people who say that we are the modern, you know, practitioners of stuff, it's not true, because it was happening a long time ago.
There was, in the late 1800s, kind of a rage for violent theater. The Grand Guignol, unlike any other theater in the world, as a general rule, would do that act of violence in plain view of the audience. There were eye gougings, there were beheadings, there were guillotines, there was acid put in somebody's face would be pushed down on a hot plate, arrows would be shot into somebody, they would be blown up, they would be burned alive, there would be an outpouring of blood. People would faint at the theater from what they saw. The Grand Guignol has been dramatized into films and so on, has been presented in films. It's more the influence that it did, which was that people saw this kind of theater and were influenced to try the next step, which was to go into films.
So I think people that are into horror, particularly graphic horror, get a rush out of it that you can't explain. I'm not sure why. I'm really not. It's either that prurient desire to see the moment of death.
Guys like the Maniac or the Friday the 13th ripoffs, you know, those creeps, guys like that really do exist outside. It's a little weird because I'll get letters with pictures from 13-year-old kids, you know,
with, you know, knives through their heads, and they've got stuff glued all over them. It's supposed to be guts, you know, and they're trying to impress me with the splatter stuff.
I think every time a new Friday the 13th movie comes out, I get at least 2 or 3 letters that are almost, each time, which are almost identical. And it's always some kid writing in, asking, where can I get a hockey mask like Jason wears in the Friday the 13th movies?
Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Return of the Living Dead. I mean, everything today is zombies.
I think the effects in Day of the Dead are superior to the stuff in Dawn of the Dead, technically. In Day of the Dead, I had 6 guys working for me. 3 months before we started shooting, we did elaborate zombie. We just were making generic zombie appliances, small, medium, and large.
At the beginning of the shoot, they handed me a list. It had a date, and it had how many zombies they needed on that date. So it's like November 6th, 375 zombies. When you're putting it on, it's kind of like you have 20 people you have to do. And you have so much time to do them. So it's like they stick the brush in the glue and they go, and they put the appliance on. I mean, it's fast. At the end of the day, getting the glue off was like, you know, it's very, very painful. I even had one girl pass out on me when I was taking it off. I was holding her up and she just fell. And I was like, wait a minute, what's going on here? She just fell. And I just, you know, I sat her down and gave her some water or something, and she was okay.
We've never really had any problem with people on the set having compunctions about the gore. We never have any problems recruiting zombies. Everyone wants to be a zombie, and not only do they want to be a zombie, but they want to be a zombie that has a horrible wound or a zombie that gets to eat.
They want to get in the front line and get close to the camera if they're eating something. Especially when they know what it is. Like, we also had these long homemade sausage things that looked like these intestines. You know? I mean, some of the actors were actually chewing on, you know, bones and things from slaughterhouses, you know, been sitting around for a long time. But mostly it was turkey, chicken, bologna, ham, hot dogs that we decorated with this barbecue sauce that looked a lot like blood. Mainly that, or they would be chewing on just pieces of rubber, you know, like, what do we have here? Here's a latex lower intestine here. There's chunks of flesh. Now, chunks of flesh was something that we would just whip together, and whenever we needed it, we would stick it in something so that when a piece of a person came off or a head was torn off, you know, see, this stuff just stretches nice. I mean, it's pretty sick, I know, but
still has motor function.
To prove a point in the movie that a zombie, even just with the brain intact, would still function. I mean, this was attached to a guy to look like, you know, everything was scraped and cut away from him, leaving the brain intact. And the brain was stuck in here with all these electrodes sticking out of it. So this guy's strapped to a table, but he's moving around. His arms are flying about. He's jumping around, quivering, you know, and this is all that's left of him. I mean, this isn't something we have in our heads. We don't know right away where we look, so we have to go through, use one of our books, like Head and Neck Anatomy. This is gross stuff, folks. I want it to be realistic as hell. I mean, we could just throw some clumpy latex in there and splattered some blood around it. It would look okay, but there's something about, you know, seeing something that we don't know about, and when we see it, we go, oh, yeah, oh, God, yeah, oh, that must be how it is. Nothing moves and slithers and falls like, and has the weight and the sliminess of the real thing. For the autopsy zombie, we would glue this inside, tear a piece of this off, and wrap the real intestines around this, so that when he moved, the real intestines would slide off this, and then this would be left dangling, you know, outside of the body.
And sometimes it is hideous. I mean, sometimes those prosthetics are so seamless that, and you can't take it off right away. Maybe you need 3 or 4 takes, and they have to sit around with it. And just wearing the makeups themselves has got to be an unpleasant way to spend the afternoon. The stuff that Tom does generally is very predictable. He's able to say, okay, here's the piece, and here's how it works, and this part of you is going to come off, and you'll feel blood, and your eye socket will fill up with warm fluid. Don't try not to worry about it.
In Day of the Dead, there's this shovel scene where Zombie is actually top of his head sliced off with a shovel. Again, we were sitting around thinking of ways to kill.
When I was down here writing Day of the Dead, he called me up one day and said, I think I can do this shovel gag. We've been talking about it up here. Can you use a shovel gag somewhere? So I wrote in a shovel gag.
I put a blood tubing all the way through the handle of the shovel and had it come out on the back end of the shovel that you were not going to see. And we cut strategic holes in the tubing so it would spray blood against John's face, and the shovel was on him. Then we cut to the actor holding the shovel, okay, if I'm remembering correctly in the storyboards. And he would make a grinding movement and then a down movement. Then we cut to the foam dummy that we built of John that would separate right here. And like a bowling ball, I would throw this other foam head, a duplicate of John.
Rolling. Great. Kicked up a stone.
Oh!
That's pretty good, though.
Yeah, it became a contest on the set. You know, people were giving me scores, 9.4.
Oh, that's a strike.
I mean, when is the last time you saw somebody's head lopped off with a shovel, and it's still alive, and it's looking back and forth, and the blood is, it's a living. You know what happened? Every death was different. Every guy that got rubbed out, leading right up to Rhodes, yeah.
Exactly.
What happened, Tasso, was that we would sit around and have a little conference and say, well, how are we going to kill Tasso? Well, listen, Tasso's our friend. Let's tear his head off. Let's make it a spectacular death so we can go around saying, I'm the guy that got my head ripped off.
Sometimes an effect will pop up that involves testing, okay? And I hate to put makeup on myself. I have nightmares. My nightmares are having glue in my armpits behind my knees, just something where the skin, It's just, I hate the feeling, It's a real insecurity thing. So, I'll get an assistant and put glue on him or do a test on him. My assistant, Greg Nicotero, who's been with me for the last couple of films, poor guy, he'll be sitting minding his own business. Oh, Greg, I'm going to test this bullet hit in the head effect, okay?
In the original script, I had no dialogue or anything. I was just a soldier who got killed, and later on, my head comes back to life.
Just 5 minutes.
I remember walking into the shop and seeing my bald head there and Tom putting a beard on it to make it look like me. And then he put the wig on it, and the more and more it resembled me, it got to be really scary. The day that they shot it, just so happened that was the day that Salah Hassanine came down to visit the set one day. And he stopped me and he was like, that was your head right there. My God, he couldn't believe it. Tom has gotten me into the mood of playing practical jokes. So I said, let me take the head home. I said, I want to play a joke with my family. So I took it home and nobody knew, and I snuck in with his head under my shoulder and went into my room and I put it on my bed. And I pulled all the cables behind the bed and I'm laying behind the bed operating the head. I said, hey, Mom, come here a minute. So she comes walking in, doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Ah, she screams, she's like, and then she looked, she shook her head. She said, Thanksgiving Day, she wouldn't even speak to me the rest of the day. She's like, look what Savini did to you. I mean, you used to be a nice person. Now you bring these heads home.
I've had reviews on Day of the Dead that I have one review in there that doesn't even review the film. It just says that it should be taken out and burned on a pyre, and that maybe after time has passed, that people will forget the putrid glow that it put off while it was burning. Some people really do feel that way about it. On the other hand, there are people that revel in it. That's what Tom and I share. We will both go and sit and watch the film when it's finished. We'll sit at Daly's and look at each other and giggle. I mean, we're having a good time. And I think that probably is what we do share in common, and that's why it's easy to keep that comic book texture on the surface.
Now we have Joe Pilato coming. Now how are we gonna, he's Rhodes. He's the main bad guy.
I've seen 1,000 of them. He's gonna die.
we want his death to be glorious. So let's tear him in half. You know, let's have the zombies like just tear him in half, and have him still be alive to see it happen, to suffer more. So we knew that when Joe Pilato arrived, that we were going to cast his body, his whole body, and wind up with a fake body of him that we can attach him to by putting him underground and attach the fake body to him, you know, and have him, his real arms, his real face, attached to a body that we're going to do nasty stuff to. So that's what we did. And then we filled it with guts.
Of course, Tom's philosophy is you can't get any better than the real stuff. I mean, if you have the real stuff, you're going to convince the audience that it's real. So one of my jobs was to call packing house and, excuse me, do you sell intestines? And they'd be like, huh? What? What are you talking about? So finally, I called around, and finally I found a place that sold pig intestines.
Unfortunately, in his case, those guts were part of a 5-gallon drum of guts that we had from the beginning of the movie until that we used over and over again and put them back in the refrigerator.
We had a week or so off over Christmas. We came back. Tom and I went out to the mine one day, and somebody had accidentally unplugged the refrigerator with the guts in it, which was in our shop. We walk into the shop, it's like...
The stench was incredible, but we had to do the effect, so, I mean, we didn't have time to go out and get new stuff.
So I ended up being the person that would come trotting on set with my little pail of intestines. Everybody knew when somebody coming to clear out of the way.
Greg became gut boy, okay? Anytime there was guts, Greg would put the respirator on, do the whole paper suit number, and put the gloves on, and he would handle all the guts. As we were loading them, you know, we put aftershave, I think it was canoe or something, on Joe's upper lip, you know, and on top of a respirator, you know, so he could be breathing that while we were stuffing the thing with guts.
They bring in a bag full of entrails the way someone else might bring in their briefcase with, you know, pads and pencils.
And then when they tore him open, here's all these zombies with their makeup on who weren't protected by respirators. Tasso, who was one of the guys I trusted to be a zombie in the foreground, playing with the guts, he had his nose stuffed with cotton.
I take the wax earplugs that people use for gunshots and I stuff them up my nose so that I don't have to smell them.
Grab an organ.
I perfected the technique of eating innards, and that is not to eat them like some people do. I'll open my mouth wide for a bite and like put them over here or under here or do anything just so that I don't have to put them in my mouth.
Scene 101, take one. Mark it.
Poor Joe was unprotected, and I have a videotape of us, and Joe, he's ready to heave. I think we kept telling him, Joe, look, in 45 minutes we'll be out of here and you'll be part of movie history. Yeah, really? Okay, so, you know, I mean, he knew it was bullshit. He knew we were priming him, we were conning him, but he also knew that it was true.
Part of Tom's charm on the set then is putting people at ease, people that don't have experience with it.
Oh, you mother.
I see you!
It's always dangerous, but at the same time it's exciting because it's dangerous.
stuff I wouldn't dream of doing. Like some of the stuff in Knight Riders, the Freddie Heist, the guy who doubled me in Knight Riders, the first stunt he did for me with the bike flipping over and him landing on his head, he got hurt on that one.
He's a very fascinating personality in that he's got a strong physical presence.
He's a magnetic guy. He's very generous with himself, and he gives fans what they want.
You can really see the improvement in each of his films as it goes along. He just gets better and better.
So, I can't imagine a set without Tom.
He's really, really easy to work with. I mean, I'm talking to friends of mine now who have been doing other projects, and they call me and they miss working with Tom.
So you guys want some cake?
Sometimes it's hard to handle. For some people, I don't know, he gets a little big, a little large. For some people, that sort of scares them.
You know, we talked about nightmares, and the nightmares that I have, my insecurity dreams, the nightmares I give, that people come and tell me about. We talked of how I feel like I'm an assassin sometimes, I load up my car, I go places and kill people. Well, the people that I've killed in movies, the little monsters and things I created, well, they're here. Some of those people that I've killed are up in my attic, Their bodies, their foam latex and fiberglass bodies, and the creatures that I've done are all around me, I don't know, I guess a nightmare that I haven't had is, what would happen if I'm lying in bed some night and all these people that I've killed off decide to come back and take their revenge? Are you wondering what might happen in that case? Well, I'll be ready for them.